We have Muta'Ali, Everett Mason, and Terron Jones. Did I say that right? Or Terron?
Terron, you got it.
Yeah, Terron, I got you, bro. But
how y'all doing? Pleasure to be
Good. How you
here.
guys doing?
we have George here too, and the director and producer of Storm Over Brooklyn, George and Ernest, are Muta'Ali and Victoria.
Awesome. You got an all-star lineup today, huh?
Yeah, the Yusuf Ark and Doc. And by the way, Muta, unbelievable, man. I watched it last night. It was unbelievable, man. It had me angry, had me in tears. Can you talk a little bit about the process of doing that documentary? And is it your job as a documentarian to stay as objective as possible when you're interviewing people who may piss you off?
You know, I don't know if it's my job to stay as objective as possible. You know, in the editing room, there's so much power. I think documentaries need to come with like, you know how you got a Surgeon General warning, because one decision versus another, it could totally affect people's understanding of what happened. So regardless, it's going to be subjective. In an interview, I kind of am more focused on the story and making sure that I get the information and the right sentence structure in order for the viewer to contribute in a sort of comprehensive way, so that they have a beginning, middle, and end to their presence in the story. So I'm more focused on that. And honestly, one of the things about Storm that I like, kind of you realize things in hindsight sometimes, is that I feel like we treated everybody pretty fairly, and I think that I was attempting to put a spotlight on the humanity that we all have. You know, I see on social media people are getting at certain people. People are like offended by certain people's statements, or can't believe certain people would say certain things. But we're all human, you know? And I think one of the things that I hope comes across is that racism affects everybody. You know, the oppressors and the oppressed, if you want to put people in buckets like that. And so, you know, I try to get to people's humanity, because even the people who viewers maybe hate, they had the courage to come on camera and tell the story, because other people didn't. And so I appreciate that. And not to take up too much time, we had a lot of challenges. You know, I met up with Victorious in I think May of 2016.
Wow.
To start, you know, conversations about Storm Over Brooklyn, and Victorious and Yusuf's friend Charles had already been putting things in motion. So it was years and years of going forward as if success was inevitable. I got one of those little plaques on the wall, perceiving success is inevitable. And then we crossed paths with that initiative that the American Black Film Festival did with Lightbox.
Wow.
And I applied to that the day of the deadline. And the only way I was able to is because the four of us had already put in the work. You know, I just had to copy and paste. So it's like, it's just a matter of persistence, but there's challenges every single day, you know, but if you're passionate, you make it happen, you know.
You made it happen, man. And look, as a fan of the doc, I'm not gonna lie, like the first time the cop gets on camera when he's talked about coming up to the body, it infuriated me, you guys. He actually said, yeah, and he looked like a good kid, you know, black kid, didn't look like a thug, as if that would have made his death any more allowable, you know? But he was just talking, you know, he was just speaking. And I was just like, I just said, therein lies the issue, you know, as if there's the perfect victim, you know, that narrative has to stop, you know what I mean?
Right, and that was Gerald Dickens, and he's actually an EMT, and I wish I probably should have maybe kept the lower third on there longer or something, but he actually did his best to try to save Yusuf's life, you know? And so how does somebody who gave everything to save Yusuf's life also say something that falls in line with a prejudice? So it's above us. What affects us and makes us think certain ways, you know? And Russell Gibbons' mindset, it's above the color of his skin. It's kind of how he's raised in the community we're raised in has a more effect on our psyche, you know. So I was hoping people picked up on certain things like that. But I'm happy because, you know, coming up on the anniversary of Yusuf's murder, people are more aware of who he was, that he existed, and people are gonna be doing things in his honor. So I think that's kind of what part of what I think we set out to do, is to make sure people remember Yusuf, you know. So so we're happy about that.
You did that, Muta'Ali, man. Congrats to you and Victorious. You guys did an unbelievable job of honoring his legacy and humanizing him. You know, we got to really know him, and I really love the approach that you guys took with that document. So job well done.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, and Ernest, I'm sure you remember the death of Yusuf Hawkins.
Yeah.
You know, and being from New York. You're from New York, right, Ernest?
Well, originally from New Jersey.
Okay.
But around that time I was living in New York.
Wow. So it must have been you. I'm sure you remember it vividly then.
Yeah. We all remember it. It was, it was a horrible thing. It was, and that was right after we had done, right around the time we were doing Do the Right Thing.
Yep.
So
wow.
it was fresh on our minds while we were staging that. We were. It's interesting because Kevin Ladson, who was the prop trainee on that, did a documentary recently about, just kind of commemorating, talking with people that made the movie. And, a lot of people may remember how devastated we were shooting that scene, the murder of Radio Raheem, how, how Bill Nunn, the great late Bill Nunn, really put his all into it, and there were tears on set. When we were shooting, there were tears on set because it was so intense.
Yeah, it was.
And even the actors who played the cops, they had a hard time dealing with it. One of them was Danny Aiello's brother. So
wow, Ernest, it's so reminiscent of George Floyd. I Can't Breathe. It's to see in 1989, y'all, and Yusuf Hawkins' death, and here we are in the year 2000, still dealing with the same issue, right? And I want to get you guys in here, Everett and T. What responsibility do you guys feel we have as filmmakers to tell what's going on socially in the climate today? What responsibility do you guys feel as filmmakers, if any, that we have in doing that?
Yeah, I can go if you want.
Yeah.
So I feel, my whole goal in film is to change the narrative of the perception of ethnicities and cultures in film, because it's just always been bad ever since, and especially for us. And sadly, if you ask someone who isn't from America, what does a typical American look like? They'll probably name a white guy, right? Handsome guy, look like he's wealthy, but that's not it. We're a melting pot. So I think that's where it comes. That's where a lot of the problems stem from, is because we're over here trying to figure out what's American, but that was the Native Americans.
Yeah.
So I think now it's just that. That's what I want to just change in the game and in the entertainment industry, and it's the most powerful voice. So you can get it out to the masses, and I think that's a responsibility we have. Right?
Yeah,
start telling our own stories.
But you're right about that. How we've been portrayed in American media has traveled all over the world, and that's how people see us. My oldest boy went to Slovakia, and he's tall, thin brother with locks. He's got his locks and everything, and everybody was saying, "Wow, we're so surprised that you're so articulate."
Wow.
Yeah.
And
so articulate.
And they were saying, there's not too many like you. He says, no, there's, most young African American men are just like me.
Right.
We're working, trying to hone our craft and trying to, just, live a life and, and be cool. It was,
Yeah.
And George, didn't we talk about that, George? That's what you wanted to do with Soul Food, is show that we were regular people, just like everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I felt like, you know, like I was saying, a lot of that was like Ernest. I was saying, like, when I was in Chicago, I really wanted to get in New York, in the scene in New York, you know, Jim Jarmusch with you and Spike.
Mm-hmm.
Because you guys were like telling films that was just straight telling films how you guys saw it. It was no influence. The way I saw how you and Spike made those films, even Jim Jarmusch, who made his types of films, it had a very subjective, strong point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Very strong point of view. So it's just like, so a lot of that started for me from watching you guys, you know, what you guys were doing in New York. So when I went to LA, you know, around 95, 96, you know, you had the Hughes brothers, you had John Singleton, you had those guys doing specifically a certain thing, and we were having a voice. Even in the early 20s and, you know, 2005 and 7, you find yourself still trying to show the portrayals that you see back at home in your families or individuals that you know, instead of these cliches. So you're always fighting that, you know what I mean? Always. So us as filmmakers, I just think now it's so great when you talked about, you know, a lot of the TV showrunners now is a lot of African-American showrunners are bleeding into the feature film world, or a lot of the filmmakers like you guys with some of the docs you guys, that documentary was amazing that I just saw. Man, you guys did an amazing job, and it's just great to see finally we telling our stories and we believe in our stories.
Absolutely.
And it's more of us, you know.
Absolutely. And Terron, I want you know, your short film Ibrahim, bro, was you know, one of the first works I've seen of yours, and it was dope because it felt like, you know, you were telling a story that most people probably haven't heard of and or wouldn't be familiar with, and that you want to speak for people that can't necessarily speak for themselves or don't have the platform to do so. Would you say that is probably the biggest influence in your work? And if not, what is?
I think the biggest influence for me is just I'm an advocate of Black people in Black culture. So it is imperative that we control our own narrative and stop letting people do that for us, especially when you have people that are not invested in our community and only see us as a way of making money and don't really care how we progress and prosper in society. So I feel like nobody else is going to do it for us. So we have to do it for ourselves, and we have to use every tool like to our advantage. I mean, nothing gets around the world faster than like music and film, right? So we have to make sure that there's a balance, and we get our say and our just due in that.
Wow, I love that. And I asked George and Ernest this earlier, guys, and I want to hear y'all thoughts on it. Do you guys ever worry about making others mad? Like, does any of those other considerations go into your work? Like, I see you laughing, Vic. I'm guessing that's a no for you. I don't know if
no, that's a yes. You know,
okay.
Especially the things that I do, they're very, you know, high strung topics.
Right.
And the first person, like all my films are about people that unfortunately died before their time. And I'm coming back at least a decade in case of Storm Over Brooklyn, 3 decades later. So I'm worried about making his mama mad first when I call and say, hey, I'm a stranger, how you doing? And then you have this thing where I'm so glad that we didn't get this backlash, but in our community, there's this insane idea that we shouldn't be telling certain types of stories. So Muta'Ali, remember, I told the whole crew, like, yo, when it comes out, come at us, you're gonna be on faith, they're gonna troll us. And it's fantastic that the whole community is behind the film. I think that people of a certain age, you know, who remember Yusef, a lot of them have gotten cynical through the years, but I think when we tell this story, it addresses one of our earlier traumas. I was 12 years old when it happened. And so people, the same folks who would say, oh, I'm tired of hearing that and let's tell new stories. This is the first time they're able to address the pain and the confusion and the wonder that they felt as a child when Yusef, who was a child as well, died. And so they're really embracing that, and they have a group, right? The whole world now is an adult support group to address that trauma that we had as children. But yeah, I definitely always, because I'm an artist, right? So
Right.
I'm gonna do it anyway, but I always do care if people
No.
are gonna be upset or happy at my work.
But you want a strong reaction. I mean, you don't want indifference. You know, you want to leave an impression. And
Right.
and where does that anger come from? Does, you know, is it the outrage that this was done to this young man, or is it people saying, oh, that can't be the way it is? You know, the thing is that, you know, when you're telling the truth, you're gonna get reactions.
That part.
Because
Wow.
some people can't deal with it.
I just want to bounce to the Hate You Give though. Hate You Give was had some really dynamite scenes in terms of protests and everything. I shed a tear, definitely. And one thing, you know, really, I guess to cap the answer to your question is Cody K. Bambara said that the duty of an artist is to make revolution irresistible. So I think Hate You Give definitely put a battery in my back and back of a lot of young people, and I hope that Storm Over Brooklyn does the same thing.
Wow.
We actually have a couple of people who are in Bensonhurst that called us up and told us that they actually are doing a protest in Bensonhurst in the name of Yusef this weekend. So, you know, the struggle continues.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate that, man. You know, the documentary, man, it was so amazing because, you know, like I say, I'm from the Midwest in Chicago and Milwaukee, so I saw it from a distance. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know the depth in terms of Al Sharpton and all the protests and all the marches. I didn't know all that, man. And you know, and it was just great just to see that story, because when I was doing the Hate You Give, like I was telling Brandon, we started with Soul Food in '96, and my relationship with Fox been like 20 years, enough where when I finally made that film, yeah, I sort of got like a director's kind of final cut, kind of like they let me make. You've been here so long, you've been working with us. We give you one for yourself. So I finally was able to do that. But now it's exciting time that you guys were able to just capture something that I knew of, but I didn't know much of. And I think that's really was amazing, man. I literally saw the doc 3 days ago with my wife, man. And I had to have my son just to sit down and watch it, you know, because he's always on the computer and wants to, you know, he plays his games on the computer. Like, no, just sit down and watch it. It was just really did a great job with that. So just as filmmakers, man, it's just like I was saying, when I came out in '97, it was just, to me, you know, with seeing Ernest and what they did and seeing other filmmakers, it really wasn't a lot of us, man. I mean, Ernest may have seen more. It just really wasn't a lot of, you know, like I knew Brandon, like Rusty Cundoff and the Hughes brothers. And Brandon sort of worked with everybody. You worked with Ernest. Right. But it was just a handful of Black filmmakers, Malcolm Lee, Gina. Like, we see each other, we all know each other, and now it's so many more, and it's so great that there's so many different stories, and we tell different kind of stories. Yes. But the first time ever I'm seeing it, it's sort of authentic. Yes. Real. That's not coming from no fake place now. And so I was very proud of just love your documentary, man. So
wow. Thank you so much.
Wow. And to piggyback off that, George, like, so the great thing about this, I'm looking at all you guys, and I pretty much know each of you. I mean, Muta, I don't know you too well, but I, you know you and your work, your documentary on, by the way, he has an unbelievable doc called A Life Essential for Ruby D.
You saw that?
I did, and if you don't mind me saying, his grandparents are Ruby D and Ozzie Davis. So, I mean, he's like, this royalty throughout this whole conversation, man. And as I said, Ibrahim Terron was unbelievable, played at ABFF, unbelievable, you know, documentary. Everett, you know, man, you're my writing partner, man. So that says a lot about what I think about you, man, and the work you do. You know, you're a writer on staff, on Family Time, and this is the next generation, y'all, like, seriously. And, you know, and I don't want to take up too much more of you guys' time, but what are you guys' influences? Of course, Ernest and George, but I want to hear from the young guys, man. I'm sure two of them are here today, but what are you guys' influences? Whoever wants to jump in first with that one.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So my influence actually are the movies and TV shows I don't like.
Really, explain that. Explain that. E.
I feel that. I feel
Yeah.
that.
So I mean
Explain
it.
that.
So my film, The Audition, I don't know if I ever told you that, but I wrote it after watching 12 Years a Slave,
Wow.
and I was so upset because at that point it was so many films about
Mhm.
us being slaves and being the help and being this that. I'm just like,
Mhm.
shit, is that all we were?
You was over it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was over it. So just seeing stuff like that, and just it got to a point where I'm like, I can't take our stories not being told by us anymore, and
Wow.
us keep accepting these roles, which is just going to keep pushing the same narrative. So, um, kind of to answer your other question too about the nervousness of the things you put out, uh, I knew from the beginning. I would always say my writing style is kind of like a middle finger to Hollywood,
Mm.
and so if you see my stuff, that's exactly what it is. So whether you're going to be happy, whether you're going to be pissed off at me, I'm fine with that because it's going to cause that conversation, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what I want.
Okay.
So, and I know it's a path. There's some people who don't want to take that jump. There's a lot of people in the industry I talk who feel the same way about the stuff I create, but
Yeah.
they don't want to taint their name or whatnot. So I feel like if I just came running out the gate with that, like Westbrook, right? He plays hard, so
Right.
the refs kind of ease up a bit because they know that's how he plays.
Right.
So that's
Right.
kind of how I approached it.
Love that.
I guess what inspires me, I guess, being an artist and be able to being able to create something like out of nothing and being able to
Mm.
tell stories. Like I became an artist purely for like selfish reasons because I
Mm.
wanted to make stories and images of like what I wanted to see because I
Wow.
wanted to see it and that's what I wanted to create. So with just finding like-minded individuals that also do the same thing and just give me like when I look at something, I can see myself in that or I can see myself creating something like that. It's just like being an artist is like really what inspires me and watching other artists create. And then also seeing like terrible stuff and I'm like, man, I can do better than that. I can show us in a better light than that.
That's
Like
hilarious.
more than anything, that motivates me.
Yeah.
Like when I see something that I don't think is very art is subjective. So when I see
Yeah.
something that I really don't appreciate or I really don't like, that motivates me to make and start creating more.
I love the honesty, T. I love it. Muta or Vic?
I mean, for me, that's a tough question. I've been thinking since you asked it.
No. Yeah.
I know sometimes I get motivated because I like being confrontational and I like bothering people, and it's not just for the sake of bothering people, but I don't do well in environments of when things are inauthentic, right? Just naturally, and so I think on a broader scale, our country is supremely inauthentic, land of
Yeah.
the free. Obviously, that's not really the case. So I think that leaves a lot of fertile ground for someone like me who would like things to be authentic and who likes to confront things that aren't. I don't know if that's inspiration, but it's something that's motivation.
Mm.
And I do get inspired by great art, great films, great art. And as much as I never thought that those people who say like, oh, I love life, I'm living life, loving life. I've never been like that. But
Yeah.
like, I think when I thought about it like a couple of years ago, it's like, what I feel is being done or what I'm trying to do and what I feel when I watch great art is we're capturing the human experience. And I think when we can watch all at once in a theater or, at home, one timeline of a human experience, it unifies us and gives us something to point to when we want to communicate with someone else about maybe how we feel or about an issue or
Wow.
something like that. So something like that
Yeah.
is inspiring, something that
Yeah.
realm.
Love it. Love it. Vic.
Yeah, so with me, it's like Muta'Ali. It's like half inspiration, half motivation. Only thing I can think of is I lost a lot of people.
Mm.
I have a lot of dead friends and such, and I have some elders that also made a lot of big sacrifices, and that's like built this fire in me, you know. And when I get a certain idea or a certain story in my head, um, it almost consumes me a bit, and all I know is how to tell the story, and whether it's through music or art, you know. And I found film, right, you know, the past 10 years, and it's the way that I get all of that out, and it's the way that I take my sacrifice. And when I work, I don't see any other way. You know, I don't know how I would live or how I would survive if I don't get this stuff out, you know, of me. Um, and so that's just my thing. I don't have a choice. You know,
Yeah.
I don't have a choice. But there's so much, and those that are living, you know, those that are living. I have a homeboy, you know, that he told me that he tells his son to look at my stuff to let him know that all of daddy's friends are mechanics. You know,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
even saying
Wow.
that, like, kind of like makes me feel, you know, a certain way. So I just motivated by that.
Wow.
I have my neighborhood on the back. I have ancestors on my back, and that's what it is, you know. But everybody's answer too, like combine that. I see some stuff that's whack. I'm like, that's whack. But really, it's like something that's to be in my heart, and I just can't get it out, you know, of my head. I just gotta go ahead and work on it so I can get it out, you know.
And I gotta say, Vic, man, it shows in your work, man. Even your documentary, you know, digging for Weldon Irvine. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the late great musician Weldon Irvine, but I got to see your doc at a film festival earlier this year, you know, and it was great, bro. And I see the passion that you have for your subjects, and it's great. It inspires me. Great work inspires me, and all of you guys, you know, do great work, man. I just wanted to say that.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I told someone I'm a method director. They said that doesn't exist, but I feel like I just go in too deep sometimes. Like, I just you know, but it's
Yeah,
all I know, you know.
yeah, absolutely. Hey, George and Ernest, man, what are your inspirations? I want to hear. I would love to hear you guys. Who inspired you guys still? Who inspired you guys to get to this just Hall of Fame place? You know, y'all are Hall of Famers, so.
I mean, I think, you know, I'm inspired by things that are happening in the world, you know, the news, you know. Yeah. I find a story that interests me. I mean, that was kind of like the start of Juice. But another thing that inspired me in Juice when I was at Howard University, and at the end of my first year there, I had a job working at the post office, and always had to check in at like before 6:59 a.m. You know, wow. for 7 o'clock. But so I'd be riding the bus in, and I would see young brothers hanging out on the bus. You know, talking about, you know,
wow,
9-10-year-old kids that look like they've been hanging out all night long.
Right.
And just wondering, what were they doing? You know, what kind of stuff were they getting into? And, you know, just remembering growing up in projects in Newark, New Jersey, you know, the stuff that I used to go into. Because once I left the house, my mother never knew some of the stuff that happened to me and my boys, you know?
Yeah.
So things like that, you know, stuff in the news, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Jimi Hendrix.
Wow.
You know, that's the stuff that, you know, that always inspires me, you know, that I listen to. And I'm always looking. I'm kind of like a sponge, you know, I'm always looking for
Absolutely.
stuff. So, you know, things that are happening in science, you know, I've started writing a lot of science fiction lately.
Really?
So, yeah. So we got a couple of, my wife and I collaborated on a horror film script that I'm doing rewrites on now.
We got to see it, Ernest. We got to see it, man.
Yeah, well, I'm doing rewrites on it now, and
awesome.
And other stuff, books by an adaptation of a novel by an African-Canadian science fiction writer.
Awesome.
Minister Faust, and, you know, always looking for stuff, always looking for inspiration.
I love hearing that, man. Some people might think that, hey, you guys have done it all. You know, you guys created such classic films. What else could you guys possibly want to do? So to hear that you're always looking and always inspired is dope.
Still trying to keep moving up, man.
Awesome, man. Awesome. What about you, G?
Yeah, it's the same thing, man. I think Ernest said it the best. You know, it's just you constantly, you got to kind of keep reminding yourself why you loved it in the beginning, because the business stuff just takes over sometimes, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I mean, even in the pandemic time, you know, like we were talking about, like what, you know, like you and getting ready for pre-production, and then everything sort of slows down, and you got actors, and how do you keep it going? How do you keep the rewrite? And you got like, yo, why do I love it? You keep going back to it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it always comes down to watching other people's work or other people and what they believe in, and you know, you just constantly see talking to an actor, you know what I mean? What you know, what are other people working on? What are you seeing on television? What are you seeing on films? You know, just watching old films, you know what I mean? Still a lot of things that I still want to catch up on.
Yeah.
You know, still a lot of stuff that I want to see. And then things that I see, I was like, man, I saw that somebody else just did that 5 years ago or 2 years ago. Is we always influencing one another. So
Yes.
I think the key is, you know, is to stay and remembering why you did it, for the love of storytelling. And sometimes that can get lost, you know,
Right.
in that. And you just take a little bit from everybody. And that's what I try to inspire myself as a filmmaker.
Wow. And I can say this too, man, it is a community, like you were saying earlier, Jordan. You know, you have always opened yourself. As busy as you are, man, I don't know how you have the bandwidth to do it. And like you, Ernest, even being on this platform, which I appreciate so much, and all of you guys, it really is a community. Like you, anytime I want you to read a script of mine, George, you always find time to do it. I don't know. You'd be like, yeah, man, I'm in the middle of a meeting, but I read it, you know, in between this meeting, I had like an hour to spare. So I appreciate that. And Ernest, I even remember my mom had worked, you were doing, forget what the TV show was, but I had reconnected with you and I wanted to send you a script and you were like open to it. And that was my fault. I actually didn't follow up with sending it to you, but I just say that to say like, I love that you guys truly are of the mindset that what you guys know, if you guys can instill something on the next generation of filmmakers, you guys are more than open to doing that. And I really appreciate and love you guys for your willingness to do that. And to my younger cats, I should say, y'all got any questions for these guys, man? Like any questions that y'all have wanted to ask and just thought about asking, whether it's for soul food or juice or.
I want to know. I got a statement first, brother Ernest. I wish I could remember the name of the film, but I mean, I've been a fan of yours for a while. I'm in Yonkers, and I love the film you did with DMX. And but the other film, I saw it last year. You did it. It was on an island, and they were playing dominoes.
Oh, double play.
I love the characters, and to see a bunch of black people like with different, all the three-dimensional characters. I really love that. So I just want to tell you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Because we're still trying to get it out to the world. You know,
wow.
It's years ago I developed a love for the island of Curacao, and we shot it. And I had already shot 2 films there in the mid '80s and in 97, 98. No, well, 89. Yeah, in the in the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah,
in the 80s, and just loved the island. And then this novel came my way that was written by one of Curaçao's great writers, Frank Martinez Arion. And it's a great island. It's Caribbean. It has was a former Dutch colony, you know. So, you know, most of the folks there speak Dutch or Papiamentu, which is the old slave language, Spanish and or English, you know. And it's a great island. And I just developed. I was so happy that book came my way. I'm glad you like the film, man.
That's awesome.
I loved it. And then my question is, what do both of y'all recommend in terms of having a longevity, you know, in a career? Are there any strategies that you have kept in mind early on to be in the game, you know?
Great question, Mufu.
What do you say?
Go ahead, George.
I mean, I guess it's different from other people. I guess for me, it was just, I was just constantly learning, you know, in terms of, I wanted to direct. I never really considered myself a writer. I wrote Soul Food out of just necessary to direct, and I was able to control the material. So I just try to learn different things. That's why I was able to produce, and sometimes I produce things that I necessarily is not particularly my genre, you know what I mean? So I'm going into producing, directing, and then over the last 7 years, I started getting into television, and I learned television is a whole different thing. And I wish, films were more like it. It's just so fast. It's so quick. You got to think fast. You got to think quick. You got to be on your toes. And there's an energy. The writing is sometimes a little bit more smarter, faster, you know what I mean? So I take a little bit from different things and try to do different things. And sometimes I produce, sometimes I direct, sometimes I just get in television. I just think, and try to choose things that you love. There was an 8-year gap after I did Men of Honor with Robert De Niro and Cuba Gooding Jr. I took an 8-year gap that I did Notorious, and it was because I was just trying to find something that I loved, and I was producing. And everybody was like, well, you be out the business so long, you're gonna work again, site, not what they say, night scene on the site, nobody see you. I was like, nah, I'm just gonna stick to what I believe in. And then the right project came, and then I was able to have another, succession of movies after that. So I really believe you just trust what you believe in and do the right thing. I think you're okay. Nobody can take that away from you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, television's been good for me, because I don't know, those schedules always work for me, because even the films that I've done, we never had healthy schedules. They always had to be done pretty quickly. Most of the movies that I did, even Juice was done on a schedule, like when we did Our America. That was like Juice was shot in 24 days. So, so being able to go into television and try and bring a cinematic sensibility to TV, which is doable now, because now most folks, it's no longer the little box. Now people have big screen, or wide screens, flat screens on their walls, where you can, you don't have to just concentrate on this. You can, you can show a figure in a landscape and show the relationship between somebody and the environment that they're living in. So, and like you said, George, TV scripts are smarter because you don't have to tell so much of a story in an hour and a half. Now, the way series are, you can let the arc of a character stretch out over several episodes, and you get into some of the real interesting intricacies of character. But I do love movies.
Yeah. But, it's always sort of frustrating because, sometimes with a feature, when I'm not writing it, you have a writer, they go away, 8 weeks become 12 weeks becomes 15. What, man, TV writer, this guy is character first, faster, quicker, thinking faster. And, just being in both mediums, it's like you can be able to take certain things that fit you. And one of the things I really loved was just that writer's room, And I kept just thinking, it's got to be a way where I could get features, like get more than 2 or 3, not just on a one-time basis. And like now it's like when I have a writer, now it's all Zoom. I get Zoom. 4 people, let's read the script, let's throw it out, throw an ideal out, throw it out, let's write it. That's just for me, just sort of being around TV. So I think I like taking different ways of working and stuff. And I found it was very inspiring to work in television after doing features, and like seeing you guys doc is like, my wife always says, when you're going to do a documentary, is like, it's just inspiring. Just try everything, do everything. And now I was realizing when Spike used to come up to me, Ernest, he used to say, man, you take it too long to direct, man. You take it too long. I already did 3. I understand, because he used to say body of work. He used to say body of work. You got to have a body of work. And then you look at his body of work, you can see he's like, he got so many movies. He just had to keep knocking them out. And or talking to Steven Soderbergh, it's like, when I do a movie, I don't even think about it anymore. Because I asked him, I said, with Steven Soderbergh, I asked him, I said, I love your movie King of the Hill. And I remember King of the Hill was in the Cannes Film Festival. Man, it's such a great movie, but nobody's seen it. It's a great movie. And he was like, yeah, I haven't thought about it since I directed it. Wow. And and that's the little things that I pick up,
Yeah. Wow.
And Ernest, your work on TV and YouTube, George, like, but I mean, from The Wire to Dexter, then I was watching Heroes. I didn't even know that you there. I'd say, wait, it's Ernest. That's all directed by Ernest Dickerson. And you've just done a bunch of tremendous TV stuff. And The Wire, I think, is the greatest TV television show.
The Wire was good. Walking Dead was good.
Yes.
Walking Dead, I can honestly say Walking Dead is probably some of the most physically difficult stuff I've ever done.
Really?
Because shooting in Georgia in the summertime, you know, hot and humid. And humid, and in the woods, dealing, you know, where you go home and you got chigger bites on your legs, you know? So,
wow.
You know, so, and, you know, those shows got pretty big, but you know, it was great. You know, we're still, a lot of us are still friends. Every other Friday, we have Zoom calls with some of the cast and some of the producers of The Wire, you know, and just get on it and just talk for about an hour.
One of my good friends is Wendell Pierce.
Man, Wendell, I love Wendell, man.
Yeah, he's dope, right?
I think Wendell is one of the great, probably unsung American actors we got. Because the brother will deliver every single time. Yep. Every single time. He'll do stuff. I was lucky enough to get him. I did a show where I had him play a veterinarian who becomes a werewolf.
Okay.
And we had so much fun.
Wow. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Any other questions, guys? Yeah, fire away.
Question, this is a vulnerable question that the world's gonna see and everything, you know. So I just started doing film within the last 10 years, and you know, my second feature being on HBO, it's not that bad, you know. But I am 43, just turned 43, and I talked to a lot of filmmakers my age who kind of just started, like, dang, I wish I was doing this in my 20s or my 30s. You know, sometimes I feel like it's I'm about to be pushed out. Do you have any advice for filmmaking? Even though you all did start a long time ago, you know, filmmaking.
Well, I did Juice when I was 40.
Oh,
whoa!
I was 40. I'm 69 years old.
What? Blacks don't crack, Ernest.
Damn.
So, you know, I just turned 69 on June 25th. But no, I did Juice, you know, when I was 40. You know.
Wow.
And you know, I don't let age define me. I still think I've got my best work ahead of me. So I don't even think about age, man. Just you know, if you know, keep a young mind, you know, and you just keep track of what's going on and just keep looking at stuff and, you know, be a sponge and just absorb stuff, and you know, and always remember that, you know, you won't know everything. You know, there's no way you can know everything. And I always tell young filmmakers, you know, somebody asks you a question, don't be afraid to say, I don't know. Figure it out, but I don't know yet. You know, because my mantra in life is that creation is a patient search. And no matter how old you are, you know, you'll be searching. You know, you'll be spending a lot of time trying to find what's going to inspire you, or what's going to motivate, you know, what you want to put into your work. You know, you're going to spend a lot of time doing that. You use the internet and everything, but don't let age define you, man. You want to keep making movies into your 90s. Yes. You look at some great directors, man, like John Huston was like in his late 70s, early 80s when he died, and he died after making a movie. So you know, he kept at it. You know, so don't let age define you. Keep it going.
Yeah. I have a question. How do you balance your artistry versus the business side? Because the two don't go hand in hand. Like, you still have bills to pay, but you're still an artist and you want to be creative. So how do you balance those two?
Well, for me, television has been helping to pay the bills for the past 20-something years, I guess. And what I've realized, I don't fit into the kind of television that's on networks. There's a network style of television directing that basically says, shoot as much as you can and let the editor figure out how to put it together. But in the cable and the streaming world, I feel like I'm able to really act more as a filmmaker, where my point of view is what I stick to and what I do. I don't, and I will do the edit. I mean, when I did The Wire, which was one of the first shows I ever did, they wanted a filmmaker's perspective.
Wow.
And so I didn't have to do what Gordon Willis used to call the dump truck school of directing, where you just shoot everything you can think of, and then it all gets piled in. I just don't respond to that. So I don't go after network shows. I go after cable shows and streaming shows. And even though they don't pay as much as the network shows, I feel more artistically fulfilled doing those. So,
Wow.
I think that's basically it, and being really selective about the materials that I take.
That's great. And George, I know you've done both network and cable. Didn't you did This Is Us, and you've done Power. Do you see differences?
Yeah, no, I started with Power and Marvel, and then the pilot for Life got picked up. It's different. It's definitely it's a little different for me with pilots, and when you're dealing with network and then you're dealing with streaming. So all of it is just like it's a really good process. I think with the pilot is just really you have a little bit more control. You're working with the showrunner in the show, and I love that idea a lot. I feel like with For Life, it was a really great opportunity to see a showrunner turn things around very quickly in that process, and you have a lot of say. So, and when you're doing things for cable or streaming, I feel like you can keep things in a subjective point of view of the character. You can shoot it from a subjective point of view. And, sometimes you can do a scene and probably in one camera setup if you want, you don't have to shoot things, even though they would like you to do that. But you felt like you were a filmmaker, like Ernest was saying, you feel like you're a filmmaker. So those are the things that I felt that I was able to do in between the features. After The Hate You Give, a couple pilots came to me, and I had a time before a movie, and it was like, man, pilots move so fast, and it was a great process, and it becomes kind of strenuous a little bit because you gotta prep, and then you gotta do presentations for the network. Sometimes you have ideas for casting, the network have their ideas, and I learned too a little bit is that in TV, obviously the writer and the showrunner is the king, and I honor that. But as a pilot, you felt like I was there making decisions, and I was there part of that. I felt part of the family, which was great. So it's a good thing that I learned too, is just trying to just open up things. Just, why between movies my wife, she always tells me, in between movies, stay busy. I was like, you just want some money coming in.
That hand back there.
There's somebody behind you.
I know, I see a hand too, Ernest.
It's true. Pilots are great because you set up the world of the series. You set up that world, you decide the look of it. I did last year, I spent 6 months in Albuquerque doing executive producing a show called Interrogation.
Nice.
For CBS All Access, and even though it wasn't a black themed show, it was a true murder mystery that happened in 1983 in a case that lasted over like 40 something years.
Wow.
Before the guy was able to get off because of being accused of murdering his mother. But the whole show was built around points of view. All the people involved in the case over the years, points of view. So what I was able to do, because I directed 6 out of 10 episodes, me and my cinematographer worked out a look for each point of view of each person.
Awesome.
For the show, so that, we had a neutral point of view, which was, not a point of view, but just the objective world, which is reality. And we had the subjective, where we got into different points of view, how people thought the murder happened, how they interpreted their reactions and interactions with different people and stuff like that, which was cool because you do the pilot and you can set all that up, and then everybody else that comes in has to follow your lead.
Yeah. Wow. That's dope. That's dope.
I have a question. So well, I have two. I'll ask one and it's enough time. I'll ask the second one later. But what would you guys say? So I'm still pretty new into the game as well. And my biggest struggle would be middlemen. So I know it's kind of easier now with social media and things like that. So what would you guys say if you were looking to work with younger filmmakers? How could they wow you, or what would you be looking for to where, because I'm sure you get approached all the time as people want you to be a mentor or read a script or whatnot. So I guess what would you guys look for in the younger generation that would make you say, yes, I want to work with these type of people?
Well, it's this interesting thing, man. All you guys sort of have that, which is great, just to be inspired by everything everybody's saying. I remember I went to Acapulco Acapulco used to have a film festival there. It's now the film festival in Miami. And I went there one year and it was like 5 filmmakers that was on this Q&A. And somebody got up and asked John Singleton, who was there, who was the first person that ever took me out to lunch in Hollywood. So he was such a great filmmaker and a great person, right? And somebody's like, I got an idea for a movie, And John was like, I couldn't believe it. It was the funniest thing I was. John was like, nah, man, no, I'm good. And he was like, everybody on this Q&A made movies, and all you got is an idea, write a script. Can you do a movie? He says every filmmaker got to start over. Every time we finish a movie, we got to start all over. It ain't easy for us. Show us something. And I always look at that when people come up to me. It's like, wow, you got a script. Is it great? Let me read it. Like Brandon was always does great writing, or anybody made a project, a movie, because it's so easier to make movies. When I was coming up, we had to find 16 millimeter. We had to shoot. We edit 16. That's what we had to do. It wasn't no digital. It wasn't none of that.
And pay that lab cost.
Lab cost. And you gotta, in Chicago, can you get a deal? Can you hook us up? We have to edit at night. You got to find ways to hustle. Now it's a lot easier. So I think, that's one of the things that I love when I see things being done. Just be done now, just because of your love and showing something with it. And that's what I tend to look for as a production company and filmmakers that I produce or I work with under my deal at Fox. That's what I try to look for.
Yeah, I mean, since the digital revolution, it is easier to shoot a movie nowadays, and there's a lot of there's a lot of streaming services that show movies. I'm amazed at some of the stuff I see to pop up on Netflix, little films, even short films on some of the streaming platforms. So, I used to tell filmmakers, just make a film any way you can. Digital now with, you can even shoot using the cell phone. So,
right.
And get it to, hit a film festival. But now, instead of film festivals, now you can hit streaming services. But I think it's so much easier now because you don't have to, with the digital revolution, you don't have to worry about lab costs, making prints and all that other stuff where most of the costs came in. And, you see people shoot really great films, but it always starts with that script.
Yeah.
You got to have the great idea. You got to have an idea for a film that you can do with the resources you'll have. When we did She's Gotta Have It, Spike had just had a deal fall through on another film that he was going to do called Messenger, and he didn't want to wait around. So he wrote a script that basically could be shot in the neighborhood where, we rented a beat up van from Rent-A-Wreck, to move around. But actually a lot of the times moving locations, I'd put the camera on my shoulder, the AC put the tripod on her shoulder. We'd walk like 2 blocks and set up and do the next shot, you know. But that's what he knew he was going to be able to do. And we shot that on 16 millimeter, and, you know, with deferred payments and stuff. But he wrote the script knowing what kind of resources he was going to have. And that's why we were able to shoot that film in 12 days. So, you know, I think if you got a great story idea, great script idea, you know, write it. And, you know, if you have to, shoot it with your cell phone. You know, now you can edit on home computers and stuff, and do that. It's so much easier now than when George and I were coming up.
Yeah. So my second one, did you say at the end? My second question was, since you guys did start earlier on, before social media and before all the saturation and stuff, and you were two black men who were able to break through and make it to the major leagues, I guess, how, like, I'm sure it'd be a long answer, but your short versions of, you know, what was your journey breaking through that wall? Because it was so difficult. There's only so many platforms to get things out back then. And now I feel it is easier because you can do your own stuff and get it out. So I guess, what was your journeys to get there?
What would you say for you, Ernest?
Well, I started out as a cinematographer. So, you know, when I was at NYU grad, I was a cinematography major. So what got me my first professional job was shooting Spike's graduate thesis film, Joe's Bed-Stuy Barbershop, We Cut Heads. I photographed that. John Sayles, who was the preeminent independent filmmaker at that time, saw it at the New Films, New Directors series, and he was getting ready to do a movie that ultimately became The Brother from Another Planet. And he was going to be shooting in Harlem, and he wanted as many black folks on the crew as possible. And he saw that film, and because of that, I got to shoot it. Now, before that happened, after I got out of NYU, which was around 82, me and my partner from Howard University, Gerard Brown, we started writing Juice. And then after I shot Brother from Another Planet, I got an agent and basically showed Juice to them, you know, to them. And they basically said, forget about it. You're never going to get this made. Nobody wants to see this. I got turned off by so many people, even, you know, a black casting director who said, no, the movie's too dark. You know, just forget about it, you know, and we just kept getting told, forget about it. So my career as a cinematographer was taken off, and then Gerard's career as a playwright, he was at Joe Papp's Public Theater in New York. So Juice wound up sitting on the shelf for like 8 years.
Wow.
And yeah, 8 years. And then finally around 91, Gerard was getting a new agent, and she wanted to see film material, and he gave her Juice as, you know, one of the films as film that we wrote. You know, he had his plays, but he gave her Juice, and she was like, "Well, what's going on with this?" He said, "Nothing. Everybody said forget about it. This movie will never get made." And she said, "Well, I can." You know, she said, "I bet you I can get it set up." So she took it to LA, and next thing we knew, there were about, you know, 10 film companies that wanted to buy it.
Wow.
But they wanted to turn it into a comedy.
Wait, what?
What? Really?
Yeah.
Right.
Ow.
Wow.
That makes sense.
They wanted to turn it into a comedy. They the one company that showed the most interest was Donner Schuler Donner. And, you know, and you know, one thing everybody had always told me why it would never get sold, they always told me it was too dark.
Yeah.
And so when Gerard and I wrote it, we wrote it as something to premiere us as a writer-director team. And, you know, so they gave me a list of directors. It was a 3-page list. My name was the last one on the last page.
Wow.
And we started getting these notes, you know, that maybe it'd be better turning it into a coming-of-age comedy set in Harlem. And Gerard and I, we looked at each other. We said, nah, man, no. We said, fuck this. Excuse my French. We said, fuck this.
You're fine.
And so we basically took the script back. We said, thank you, but no thank you. You know, there were movies that were playing on HBO at that time that had great ideas, but you can tell that probably through the development process, they got turned into pieces of doo-doo.
Right.
And so, you know, we said, thanks, but no thanks. And then it was probably one of the best things I ever did, because one day I got this phone call from this British gentleman whose name was David Heyman, and he was looking, he read the script of Juice, and he wanted to talk to me about it. And so we had a brunch together, really nice, you know, British cat. And he said, how do you see this movie? I said, well, I see it as real and raw. I said, there's no actors that we know of that can play these roles. We got to go after unknowns. I said, it's basically a film noir, so it's got to have suspense. It's got to be real and set in Harlem. No studio, you know, it's got to all be on location. And at the end of that meeting, he said, I like what you have to say. Do you want me to find funding for it? Turned out his father was partners with Chris Blackwell in Island Records. And Island Records had the offshoot called Island Pictures. Wow. And so they funded it for the tune of $3 million, and we put it together. Wow. And that was David Heyman's first job as a producer. Because apparently sometime after Juice, or even maybe during Juice, he found out about this book that was coming out before it was published, about a young wizard who goes to a school for wizards.
What?
And he bought the rights to that and all the sequels in perpetuity. So he wound up producing all of the Harry Potter films.
Wow.
And he ultimately produced the movie Gravity. But Juice was his start.
Amazing.
Nice.
Amazing.
That's cool.
So, you know, sometimes you can't tell, man. Sometimes serendipity, you know, just the fact that we did not want them to screw up our screenplay, and we just said, forget that, you know?
Yeah. That's
yeah,
I think it was, you know, just seeing around that time in Chicago, you know, if you wanted to make films, you wanted to direct, either two things you could do is be a production assistant in Chicago. And there was several times when Spike came to Chicago to do a Little Richard commercial. And I worked as a production assistant on that, but I kept feeling like production assistant is not something that I want to work my way up. So it all became about, I just got to just do a film. And that's what I did. My first film, Scenes for the Soul, it was shot for $150,000. And at that time, to get it into Hollywood, to get a studio to take a look at it, you need kind of like a sales representative. So I knew from watching She Gotta Have It, that it was this guy named John Pearson in New York. That was a guy who was really the guy in finding these independent films and getting it to Los Angeles. So he actually had a film program there. We went there, we took the program, and that's how I got this film I wanted you to see. We sent him the film, and he just didn't like the movie. He was just like, it's too much going on. There's 3 different stories going on. I don't know how you're gonna sell it. And I totally respected from him. This is a guy who sold a lot of movies. So I was like, I got to figure it out. So we drove out to Los Angeles, and immediately right away, we sold the film to Savoy Pictures at the time. Savoy Pictures was a company, an independent film production company that had their own distribution branch. And the producers that was involved with that was these 2 guys. It was great producers, George Jackson and Doug Mahenry. They were 2 producers. They saw the film, and they got Savoy to see the film. And then Savoy said, like, cool, we buy the film. And they actually asked us how much you want to buy the film for. And we was just joking around, me and my producer, and we said $1 million. And they only paid it. We made it for $150,000. And they were like, cool, we buy it for $1 million. And so they bought the movie. But when they bought the film, what happened was the film company went out of business. And then and when they went out of business, they said, before it went out of business, they said, we want your next movie. What's your next movie? And I was just telling Brandon earlier, I said, I felt like that first film I made, it wasn't me. I was trying many different things. I was trying not to tell a story that was important to me. So I told them, I said, my next film is going to be about my grandmother, my family, Sunday dinners, and this kid. And they were like, cool, we buy it sight unseen. We buy the script. So they paid me to write the script. But while the company went out of business, the film that they originally bought was in lingo. So it was just sitting there. And by the time I finished the script for Soul Foods, nobody was around. Nobody even cared. Doug and George was sort of busy and nobody was around. They paid us our money for the movie, but I had nowhere to go. So I had to go back to Chicago and just rethink everything. And I remember a conversation. I actually called up Delroy Lindo on the phone. And when I called up Delroy Lindo, I said, I got this movie that I want you to be in. It's called Soul Food. And Delroy was like, don't you ever call my house again. You can call my
What?
Yeah, which is my whole idea. Like, never just reach out to an actor unless you talk to their agents first.
Wow.
I had to go back out to Chicago. From Chicago, when I got to LA, I had to figure it out. And William Morris at that time gave the script to Babyface and Tracy Edmonds, who read the script. And then they got the script over to 20th Century Fox. It was between Fox and New Line. So I actually got paid twice, actually, to make the movie.
Nice.
Savoy really wasn't around and didn't really care. It was a small black film. Who cares? So we made that movie, and that's how I was able to connect with Brandon. He was the first and only actor that I saw for the role of Amal in the film. So that's how it came, which was a lot of stops and goes. And sort of just keep pushing. So that's really how that happened for me.
Dope. Did I think T left, right? Tomorrow?
No, I'm here. You
Oh, you there? Oh, there you go. Hey, there you go. Did you have any questions, T at all? Man?
No, I asked already. I asked him
You
about
good?
the balance too.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Well, look, man, this was an honor for me, you guys. Like, George, like I say, I've known you since I was like 11. Ernest, I've known you since I was like 17. I'm a 36-year-old man now. And like, I'm just, and I know you guys, and I really do love you guys. But I'm honored that you guys did this. And Ernest, I appreciate you staying on as long as you did, because I wasn't sure how long you were able to be on. And George, with your busy schedule as well, I appreciate you both, man, for
Thank you, bro. Appreciate you too, man.
Of course.
I mean, this is great. I really had a good time, Man,
I did too. And I hope you guys, man, Everett, Muta, Victorious, and Terron, I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did, man. Kind of bridging the generational gap of filmmakers. And I wish we were able to go on Facebook Live, but y'all know how technology is. But I will send like you guys this, because I did record it, so you guys can post it anywhere you guys like to. But you guys are really the next generation too. And not that you guys are like being put out the pasture or anything. You guys are obviously just continuing to inspire. And it's great to see that you guys are still inspired to do great work. But this was a lot of fun for me, man. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did.
Yeah, it's an honor to be on this with y'all. It's really an honor. So thank you. And thank you, Brandon, for inviting me.
Man, anytime.
Yeah, this is great.
And let's connect, man. Like I said, I know all of you guys, but of course, if that's okay with you, Ernest and George, man, just to keep in touch with these fellas here and see what they're doing. Because I'm humbled by the stuff that they do and inspired as well. So.
And if you ever want to do this again, down.
Yep. You down? You down, Ernest?
Tell me, because
awesome.
For that.
Yeah, what was it?
Definitely an honor. I'm humbled. I'm on cloud 9 tonight. I really appreciate being invited.
Of course.
Thank you, George and Ernest, for your time as well.
Thank you. Thank you,
guys. Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Peace.
Hey.